Welcome to Birth at Work, the podcast where we dive into the real, unfiltered stories of what it's actually like to navigate pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood while building a career. I'm your host, Krislyn Powell. Each episode, we sit down with working parents who share their honest experiences, the victories, the setbacks, the moments of doubt, and the strategies that actually work. Because let's be honest, most workplace policies weren't designed with pregnancy and new parenthood in mind. And it's time we talked about what that really means for the millions of us trying to grow families while growing our careers. Today, we are joined by Ashley. So excited. I just really love these episodes where we can bring other moms who are in the trenches, just like we are, on to share their experiences and tell their story about what it's like having kids and raising them while also chasing a career and being passionate and empowered through that. So without further ado, Ashley, welcome. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. I was hoping that you could just take a few moments and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and why you are on the podcast today.
Yes, I would love to. So my name's Ashley. I'm currently living in Georgia. I am a military spouse, and I have been married to my wonderful husband for 13 years. It's crazy that we've been married that long. And we have 2 kids. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and we currently have one on the way. I'm in my 2nd trimester.
Congrats. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. I'm so thankful that we have made it this far and that the nausea is starting to settle down and I'm getting more energy. But I am a certified nutrition and wellness coach. And so that's something that I've been doing this year, along with taking on homeschooling, which I never expected to do. But because of the military, my background and experience is pretty extensive in the workforce. I used to work in marketing as a radio consultant in Kansas, and then we moved to Colorado, so I became an IT recruiter, which is a hard industry. And then I followed my passion and got back into aquatics and in recreation, where I managed some pools. I hired and trained a staff of 150 employees, which was a huge undertaking, while getting my master's degree and running the Red Cross program. So this has been something that my experience has been building up. And in my most recent position, where I was in more of the corporate world, I was a franchise business coach and an operations manager. And we opened up swim schools across the country, which was a really, really fun position. And I was so sad to leave, but family really took priority, and I've been making the best of it.
So cool. I just admire your background so much and how you've been able to pivot in different ways, utilize your skills, and make an impact in different industries as well. And just so I want to throw a fun fact out here too, but Ashley and I were in the same master's program and had our 3-year-olds around the same time. So it's so funny. I've heard this a lot this year, specifically from friends and just kind of around social media, but just that pregnancy is a healing state, that it's an empowering, growing state, and that you're growing other things in your life as you're also growing a human. So just that year that I was pregnant and had my son, I also finished my master's program, which I think you were finishing up as well when you had your child too. So just, yeah, kind of coincidences there. And then also, you're pregnant right now. I'm pregnant as well. Yes. So I'm also in my 2nd trimester.
I love that.
It's so funny, the synchronicities here that we're able to share. And I know you're further along in your journey, but it's funny how we've been able to align. So I'm so happy that you're joining us today. And we're going to chat a little bit about your experiences so far, having kids and working, and then also your experience now. You've changed careers again, certified health and wellness coach, you have your own business, and just kind of what that's bringing to the table too. So I am curious though, before we jump into a little bit about, your past stories, as far as motherhood is concerned, before you were a mother, did you have a different picture of it versus what it looks like now? And did that surprise you in any way?
Yes. So I have always been very career driven, very goal oriented, and I was going to take on the world. I was planning on having a couple kids, but my dream scenario was dropping them off at daycare. They would be well cared for. And then I'd pick them up at the end of the day. No doctor's appointments, no kids getting sick. And I would just pick them up, and then I wouldn't hear from work at all. And that was kind of my dream, is like the Monday through Friday, and not exactly like the 9 to 5. I pictured more like 9 to 3, but it was completely different. I just like expected no interruption to my career or to my family life. Like I didn't really picture them blending in at all.
Yeah, and it's so funny how like perception is different than reality, right?
Very different.
I personally had a stay-at-home mom growing up when I was going through school, and I kind of felt like when I had my son, I was like, well, I should be able to watch him and work, right? Like that's how yeah, no, it didn't pan out that way. So cool. I'm gonna move into your pregnancy experience now, and I mean, this is amazing, right? Because you've already been pregnant twice. Actually, well, you've had multiple pregnancies. We'll talk about that. And then you're currently pregnant now. So you're able to share not only what you've experienced in the past, but also what you're currently experiencing. So I'm curious if there were any unexpected challenges that came up during your pregnancy, if you didn't foresee some things, or maybe there were some curveballs, and just if you'd be willing to share what that looks like.
Of course. Well, like any person that finds out there's like you're pregnant, there are going to be things that pop up that you are not aware of. And so you hear of morning sickness being a thing. I did not expect it to be an all day thing for me specifically. And so trying to like fake it in a workplace is super hard, especially when you are very bubbly and high energy and you're suddenly like no energy and nauseous. And I am a snacker. Most people that I work with know that like food, I like to eat healthy, but I also like to snack. And so when I'm not doing that, people are just like, what is going on? So trying to hide that. And then when I was an IT recruiter, part of the job was bringing contractors out to lunch and then going to happy hours. And so really trying to show up, but actually try to eat something, or when we would go to happy hour, trying to order a drink, but tell the waitress that I needed more of a mocktail than an actual drink so people wouldn't notice. That was very difficult. I'm not good at being sneaky at all. People can read my face.
Fly dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, no, those are huge. It's like, and people kind of notice the little things, right, when they've been used to seeing you do things. So it's funny how habits add up. And I know for me too, it was like I didn't expect being so tired. And I'm like, I need a nap in the middle of the afternoon to function. Like I cannot.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant in the workplace as an IT recruiter and in aquatics, those were both in person. So I was similar to you. I was trying to find like any break to just go out to the car for even just a couple minutes and shut my eyes so then
Yeah.
I can have like more energy. And I didn't tell you this, but I have also been coaching soccer. And it was really funny because I was wearing like nausea bands. I don't
Huh?
know if you've ever tried it. They don't really work, but I think the illusion kind of helps us. But the
Placebo effect.
girls, yeah, the girls noticed the bands on my wrists. And so they actually asked me about it before I had told anybody about this, my daughter. And they were like, what is this? I'm like, well, I'm not going to lie to you, but I am pregnant. We're keeping it quiet. But it's just funny how, like, as you mentioned, people just observe the little things that you don't think they notice.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely wild. It's things that people pick up, and navigating that too, because it's like your timing that you want to disclose that information and share, and also just the comfortability that you have in doing that. And so when you're ready, and it doesn't always line up with the physical symptoms that we're experiencing.
Exactly. You're like, I'd like to try to make it to the second trimester if possible, but sometimes
Yeah.
you do have to let like your supervisor or a work friend know so they can help cover you if need
Yeah,
be.
totally. I'm curious too, when you were preparing for leave and even like comparing situations in the past to now as you have your own business and you are working for yourself with clients, maybe, how have you approached preparing team members, clients, or anyone like affiliated with you that you're going to be taking a leave? Like, what does that look like for you?
For me, it was honestly writing a lot of SOPs. When I was in aquatics, we didn't have much documented about like what we did day to day, because you really are managing like a pool, a staff. And so you aren't going to have those procedures written down on this is exactly what to do. Outside of course, emergency situations, there had to be SOPs, or like pump room emergencies, we had SOPs. But as far as like scheduling staff, that's more of an art form. And so trying to write exactly my thought process, what I did, so people could take care of the staff, because trying to schedule four different pools and manage all the schedules of 150 employees was a lot. So I wrote SOPs, and then I helped train people that were going to cover different aspects of my job, because there's never one person that can usually take on the load. And so making sure you're having those communications and having those plans in place, and like, if this isn't working, this is who you need to go to. So they know exactly who to go to, and everybody's not scrambling. So I really think the communication is key, and having as much documentation as possible. And when I was an IT recruiter, it was such a big office that we had other recruiters just manage certain consultants. And so that transition was a lot easier. I wasn't really worried about writing like huge SOPs for that.
Yeah, and it just as you're speaking and kind of sharing about your experience, what comes to mind is just how thorough in communication you are and how organized. I once heard a phrase that was like, I'm humble enough to realize I can be replaced, but confident enough to know that it'll take three people to do so. So I'm just envisioning that for you, like writing those SOPs. I feel like I've become proficient in just like creating all of the guides for folks. It's like, here's every step so you can't possibly get confused in any way. And you thinking ahead, like, here's who you'll go to, but then also recognizing like with different roles, there were different needs, right? As you were preparing folks.
Yes, and it kind of reminds me, as you said that, it really prepares you for motherhood, because when you are leaving instructions for like anybody watching your kids, you're like, okay, so here's the list. Here is who you need to go to if this goes wrong. And as you have more kids, which you're going to figure out, each kid has a different routine and a different thing that they need before bed. Like for mine, we had this whole routine, and it was like 5 steps. So it does really prepare you for having those conversations in the house. So just the organization is something that us moms just figure out as we continue to go through motherhood.
I totally understand. And I think it's a superpower really that moms have, and something that elevates us in the workplace too. So love that. I'm curious too, as you have experienced multiple leaves and you're preparing for this one, was your leave experience what you expected? And is there anything that you would change if you could do that?
So my first leave, it was really funny, because I was telling my account manager, like, hey, I know that we have the opportunity to take a 12-week leave. However, I will be back at 6 weeks. And so remember, I was very career driven. This was my first baby. And I was just like, yeah, I'll be able to leave her at 6 weeks. Well, fast forward having the kid, and you just see those two little eyes looking up at you, and you start building your bond. And I knew instantly there was no way that 6 weeks would be enough. And I'm glad that my account manager was like, plan for 12, because it definitely paid off. But as you are going through the weeks, you're kind of counting down. And I just felt this like weight of, I have to return to work. Like, I need to bring in some money to be able to support our lifestyle and our new baby. So I like can't back out. I don't have another plan. I have to go through with it. And it was really hard. However, at this point, we were very fortunate to have my mother-in-law to be able to watch my daughter for the first year. So that took some stress off of not having to deal with the daycare situation of dropping your newborn off at a daycare. As far as, kind of looking at what it's going to look like as I'm owning my own business, I am going to have to work through the 12-week period. I'm not going to get 12 weeks of silence.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay, because I do have systems in place to help like send the check weekly check-ins to my clients out at a given time. So I do have an app that helps with those things and keep those systems in place. And it's merely just taking time to review whatever my client is going for, recording a quick video and sending it off. So I do think that it will take intentional time while my husband's here to be able to do those things. But overall, it is a weight off of my chest that I'm not going to have to drop my kid off at a daycare immediately.
I think that it just the way that you have phrased that and the different experiences that you've had and looking at it now too is it's such a pivotal point when you're coming to that transition spot where you're like, I don't think I'm, ready to let go of baby yet. It's crazy too, like getting to that point and how little they still are and how much they're still growing. A lot of us are still breastfeeding at that point, or pumping or whatever that looks like. And even if it's formula feeding, it's still like navigating that, they're not eating solid food usually when you're
Yeah.
going back to work. So there's a lot just in that time span and having the ability, like you said, to have your mother-in-law there for one of the leaves, to watch for a year is incredible. Not everyone has access to that. And then also I think, like for me, I just keeping this short, but I did go back at 6 weeks. I actually switched jobs. I switched to a remote job from an in-person, but I was like, I will take the shorter leave. I was going to take 12 in person. And I was like, I'll take the shorter leave with a remote job so that when I do go back to work, I'm still here. And then we had someone come in the home. So it was like I could still feed these meetings, which was wild. I do not recommend it. I'm not taking sick. But also cool that you mentioned the systems in place that you have for your business now. That's something that is a really cool opportunity for women who have their own businesses is like, okay, set up systems, pre-work, plan, organize as much as you can, which you would have to do at any job anyway.
Exactly.
But you're able to kind of still move that needle and keep it flowing so that kind of nothing drops in the meantime.
No, and having the conversation with clients, like especially as I'm getting closer to delivery, my kids are normally early. Like my two kids have always been like, I think Elena was a week early and Aiden, my son, was 2 weeks early. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have that conversation with my clients like, hey, if I go out of communication for a couple days, that's because I'm having my baby, but I'll reach out to you guys as soon as we can and we'll continue things. But I am going to give it like a week buffer. Like there is going to be a week that you probably won't get your check-in unless there's like an emergency. But part of having that is because I work from home, I can deliver to my clients on holidays like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's Eve as they're navigating like different parties. That can be hard to like put habits in place that you've been working on for your health. And so I can provide support during holidays and busy times. And so I do feel like I have such a gift to be able to run my business and work through this maternity leave
Yeah.
to then be able to have the freedom to, have to drop my son off at daycare. And for all the moms that are listening to this that do have to drop your kids off at daycare after you have them, just make sure that you feel super confident and it's okay to go into your car and cry after you drop them off. I worked with so many moms that did have to do that. And it is good to have somebody there that knows what's going on. So you can just give them a big hug at work if you see them and support each other through that, because I do know that that is very hard and it's nothing to be ashamed of because all of us mamas feel it when you do have to drop your kids off.
I even like when my kid hit preschool age, it was like
Yes, like when
what?
they're having rough days.
I was so, yeah, we toured several different locations. That's a whole nother conversation, but that was hard. But we passed that hump. So, but we'll do it all over again. Moving into your postpartum periods, I have, I bring this phrase up a lot, but something that rang true for me is someone mentioned like postpartum is forever, so I don't think there's a set period of time where, okay, you've completed postpartum, you're done, check. But there are early stages, right? Within the first year. I even felt like my body was still changing after 2 years. Once I hit that 2 year mark, I was like, okay, yeah, I feel like I'm, really me. It was like, but in 6 month increments, I would notice like improvements and, as baby was growing up too. But I'm curious if there was a challenging transition for you during that postpartum period or something that you want to share with other moms that you feel like would be helpful.
Yes. So I decided to continue breastfeeding when I went back to work. And I didn't realize that pumping would be such a task, especially when you work inside a building. And I was blessed enough to have an individual. It was more like a pumping closet, but it was a place where working moms could go pump. And there was actually a fridge right there that you could put your breast milk in. And so I would always like have a little cooler for after work to transport the breast milk, but it can be such an interruption to your day because you're literally having to take your computer or whatever thing that you're working on into this little space and pump. And the advice that I got from my doctor is look at some pictures, look at a couple of videos as you start pumping, and that helps with the release and helps with the flow. And it would just bring up so many emotions because you're looking at this sweet face and you're like, oh, this is all I'm missing out on as you're pumping and as you're working through this. And, sometimes you're pumping twice a day, maybe 3 times a day, depending on what your schedule is. And so that was a lot harder than I was anticipating, especially when you are navigating meetings that you have to be in person for. And then the second workplace that I had, I was going to try to figure out like how I was going to pump because they didn't have a room. And the best thing that we could come up with is using a bathroom, like going into the bathroom because there wasn't really a good place. And so it just really made me realize how different workplaces aren't necessarily set up for that kind of support.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that to attention because that was in the workplace that I was in before I switched jobs. It was literally 2 months before I had my baby, I took a new job, which was wild. But again, it was like for that remote environment. The first place I asked around to other moms who had had children while there, it was like, where do you pump? Like, and just trying to get familiar with the space so that I am ready when I come back. And they told me, oh, there's not a space. I mean, you could try to advocate for one, but I was in a bathroom stall.
Yeah, that's insane to me because not only doesn't it like doesn't feel sanitary, but then
No.
you're just like sitting on a toilet or on the ground. I don't know, maybe bring a little stool for yourself and like pump. And you have all the materials, especially like there are wearable pumps now. I don't feel like they're as efficient
Yeah.
as the other ones, but it's just so hard to imagine that women have been doing this for so long and nobody brings it up. Like, this is not some conversation that you typically have before you have a baby. It's when you get into the workplace, you're like, there's not a place for this. This is not a question that I am asking companies as I'm interviewing because that's not
Yeah.
the first thing you think of.
Yeah, I've also even heard, I mean, I think this is changing a little bit as, we move into further years as we modernize, right? There's the conversations like asking about what does parental leave look like? What do your facilities look like to support working mothers? Those questions are like becoming less faux pas and okay in the interview process. But I had heard in the past, like in earlier years, when I was in my career, maybe don't mention that you are going to have kids or that you have kids. That's something that they legally can't ask you and could affect your ability to get the job. And just wild to me. But yeah, I think it's becoming more relevant and appropriate to ask those things. And why not? Like this is a human experience, and it's also not one that's like I personally don't view like having a baby as like a crisis or something that's going to impede the workplace in any way. It's like let's just set up people for success so that they can continue to do their jobs well. And it's a normal experience. And also something I always think of is people who are enacting policies and are in leadership in workplaces. It's like, you were birthed by someone.
Yes.
Can we please have grace and compassion for people who are birthing? Yeah.
I think that's why I love seeing women in leadership positions that do have families because they show you like that it is possible sometimes it is top of mind for them to try to be an advocate. Sometimes it's not because there's different priorities. But I do think it is refreshing because I think that's more top of mind for them than
Hmm.
it is some father figures in the workplace as well. And I think because these conversations are happening, it really is opening up to, a whole conversation to include males and females. But jump back like 10 years ago, I don't really think that these conversations was as normalized as you had mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious too if there were any mindset shifts that you had. I think just as you were kind of revisiting some of your experiences, and is there anything that came up for you that you noticed like I'm different than I was before I had kids? Like I'm, more willing to speak up, or I am XYZ. Like what has changed for you since you've experienced these things?
You know what? I kind of think of that mama bear shirt of just being bold and standing up for your morals and what you believe. And I'm not saying that you have to go scream it from the rooftop. There's definitely a way that you can go about it gracefully, having these conversations. But I feel like before I had kids, I was more of the person that just kind of sat in the back of the room. And it's not that I didn't have morals or integrity, but I would let things slide a little bit more, and I didn't always put my opinion out there. But when you become a parent, I feel like you learn how to advocate because you are having to advocate for your kids, whether it's at the hospital, telling them exactly what you want them to do and making decisions. And I think it does make you really puts you in the sea of having to make fast decisions. And that's something that I love about being in a role and being in a leadership position is because I can make decisions. I do speak my mind and really try to keep other people's opinions in your mind and advocate for others too in the workplace. And I think that's a really just great way to be able to lead groups and really work with each other. But I am definitely more opinionated and strong about my morals.
I love that. And I also just themes that I'm sensing with you as we have this conversation, what I've noticed in the past from you is that you're willing to take your experiences that you've had and make experiences better for others too because of that. And not to knock other women or parents, but like not everyone does that. Some people have experiences and that are really great. Let's say experience really amazing workplace policies, and then when it's time for someone they report to have a baby or to experience that themselves and they're asking for support, it doesn't always show up the same way. And so I think that really comes down to like foundational principles, morals that you live by in your life and how you care and support others. There's always a balance of like having boundaries with yourself and being able to, stand up for yourself and say the right things to set those clear expectations for you. Also, I'm just, again, I'll reiterate that recurring theme I'm seeing with you is just that you're not afraid to speak out about what's right for other people and show up for them too. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to call that to attention.
No, it's so important. And it really has taught me empathy as a leader. It helped me go into training lifeguards how to do their jobs. I mean, these are 15 and 16-year-olds, and you have to be able to get personal with them and be able to guide them through. And I think if I wasn't a mother, I would have had a harder time really growing somebody up in their professional experience and how to be a professional. So I honestly think that motherhood equipped me for that position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100% amazing. And I grew up lifeguarding and coaching swim team and, competing and all those things. But on the flip side, like in my professional career, I thought I was going to continue. And yeah, totally the Parks and Rec queen. I'm in tech now, which is weird. It's like totally different. But yeah, so that space I just resonate with as well. Pregnant. I know that not every pregnancy for you has worked out the way that you anticipated. And if you'd be willing to share a little bit about maybe a past experience that was especially challenging for you. And once you share, I think we can kind of go back and forth here, but I can relate. So if you're willing to open up about that and share with other moms what it was like maybe navigating, that pregnancy experience that maybe didn't come to full fruition, or one that you didn't expect it to turn out the way that it did?
Yeah, so going back to an earlier question, what it's like to navigate, the nausea and deciding when to tell people. I did have a miscarriage, and it was an early miscarriage when I was working in aquatics. I had found out I was pregnant, I was nauseous, I was tired, and of course, this is my second pregnancy. And so I do want to feel more confident and tell people, but there's always that like hesitation because it's so early and things can happen. And unfortunately, it did happen. We had a miscarriage, and that actually taught me such a big lesson. And it was that I was then telling my family and some of my close friends that, hey, I was pregnant and I had a miscarriage. And that is not a fun conversation at all. And it really taught me that there is like a core group of people that I needed specifically in my corner to be able to support me through the emotions of having a miscarriage. And there was a lot of people that I wasn't open with about that. And that was something that I navigated. But I did have one friend at work that I told so she could help support me from a workplace on my emotions when I wasn't 100% there. So that was very significant. But it also, like when I got pregnant with then my son, I think we got pregnant with him like 4 or 5 months later. So
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to be able to really move past. It was a long process of like getting your blood work done, making sure everything leaves your system. Like, fortunately, I didn't have to have a DNC, but it was a long process to get like my hormones back. But I did get pregnant probably fairly recently. And so that I immediately told my family because I'm like, well, if I can tell you guys that I had a miscarriage, I can tell you guys as soon as I get pregnant with the next one because I know if something happens, I am going to tell you. So it did make me more confident in that, but I didn't share like publicly until that second trimester part.
Yeah, and I wish I could like give you a hug through the screen. I've experienced a miscarriage as well, and it's heart-wrenching. So I just want to pause and just take a moment to say like I understand what that's like, and it's so hard. So
It
I
is so
appreciate
hard.
you sharing that. Um,
I want to give you a hug too, because I feel like that's not something that is talked about. Like, I see some moms that do like the rainbow picture,
mhm.
but it is really, I think, still kind of a taboo thing unless you know of somebody who had like a miscarriage. And that's my sister-in-law. I had known that she had had a couple miscarriages. So she was one of the key people that I reached out to because, of course, you have the people supporting you that are supporting your emotions but don't really know what you're going through.
Yeah.
So I do think it is key to try to find somebody that has went through it to
Mhm.
be able to speak some life into you and tell you that like it's not something you ever get over. And I think that's just a natural part of grief. And it's still something I think about regularly, but it doesn't weigh on me like it did.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. It took me quite some time to not feel I guess it's almost like it felt like really like a knife wound. It's just that like that ache continued for a very long time. We did also get we got pregnant within a year for my son, which was like such a amazing miracle. So cool that you were able to have that rainbow baby as well. Yeah, it was interesting navigating telling folks, and I appreciate you sharing what that was like for you because it is hard when people don't truly understand like, that is your baby,
For
and
sure.
that it will always be your baby. And so that baby doesn't ever leave you. It's something that you think back on and are constantly reminded of and in good ways, moving forward. But it's really hard to work through. And yeah, I had a friend who had a recent loss so hard. So sorry for her as well. But she reached out to me and said, I now understand what you went through. I didn't at the time. And I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, no apologies
No.
needed. Like, truly, I didn't wish that you would ever have to go through something like this to feel it. But
Well,
it's,
I'm glad that you were open with her too, because then she like went to you because she knew that you had experienced that. And I think like to add on to that, you don't realize a lot of the physical things that like take place, even if you have an early miscarriage and, as things go on, if you have a later, that's even more dramatic to your body. But like, I still lost hair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I losing hair? I didn't like bring you to term. So I wasn't expecting to have those like experiences that you experience like postpartum, like newly postpartum when you deliver a baby. I didn't know that like my hair was gonna fall out still. It just like it kind of was a slap in the face along with like all the emotions that you are dealing with just from the loss.
Yeah, your body has to recalibrate still. And it's almost like it's already an unfair situation. And then you're faced with that too. So, so many levels to the healing process. And yeah, but I'm really glad that we were able to share this too, because I think there are maybe some moms out there experiencing it or worried about experiencing it. And I think it's also a topic that's becoming less taboo. And it's like, this is okay to talk about. This happens, and obviously we hope it never happens for anyone, but talking about it helps. So,
It
and
does.
I'm also curious too, as we've kind of talked about workplace policies, what it's like to take leave, being pregnant, communicating that, experiencing loss. Is there anything that you feel like is a misconception that's still happening now that you wish would just disappear from maybe culture, workplaces especially, and just how folks respond to women who share their pregnancy, disclose the news, or like have babies while they have a career?
Yeah, so one misconception that I really think this is like nails on a chalkboard for me is that mothers aren't as committed in the workforce as fathers. And I would say that is 100% not true. I've been a mother in a couple different places, and I was fully committed when I was there. I would be 100%. And even like with doctor's appointments, when I was at work, I was focused on work. And that's like making sure you set clear expectations and deliverables. And even if you're meeting like your goals, I still feel like there's, well, Ashley's not gonna be here right at this time because she has to drop her kids off at the doctor's or be with them. And so I feel like there's just this misconception where we aren't as committed even when we are taking our kids to the doctors and stuff. And there's fathers that do that all the time too, pick their kids up from work or drop them off at daycare and take them to the doctor's appointments. But I don't feel like there's this like, you're not committed. It's like, oh, you're a really good dad for doing that. But I've never been told like, oh, you're a good mom for handling that.
Yeah, just kind of an expectation, right? It's like it comes with the territory. Great point. I have a friend, Rachel, who I'll link this in the show notes, but she mentions and advocates frequently for like recognition of just gender roles and how mom and dad should be recognized at work and that moms can work too. Like it's okay, all of these things. But she talks about I think it's called the mommy tax. And then I'll write it specifically in the show notes, but in the reverse side, it's like essentially like moms get taxed for having kids, but then dads typically receive rewards for having kids. It's looked on as like a badge of honor kind of thing, like, oh my gosh, he's so incredible. Whereas it's like she maybe isn't going to be as focused on her work now that she has kids. So really interesting. But again, I'll link that. It's something that she talks about quite a bit and advocates for more balance with, but
I love that.
totally important.
It is. It is so important. And it's wild to me. It's even funny. I don't know if your husband has ever got this reaction, but my husband will bring the kids shopping and people will see him and be like, oh, you're such a good dad. And I'm like, what? I bring the kids shopping all the time and I'm not a good mom. But I think it's just like, it's so weird to see there's tons of dads who are like very involved and step up. They're not like sideline dads. And, I am glad that they are getting recognition because I do think that, just being a parent is hard. So it's good to hear encouragement. It's just crazy to me that people will be like, you're such a good dad for bringing your kids shopping.
Yeah. Yeah. Or another example that comes to mind as well is when women need to travel for work. And the question is, and I think this was like trending on LinkedIn maybe a month or so ago, but it was like, who's watching the kids? And my partner is like
My partner.
your dad or whoever is at like in partnership at home, whatever that situation looks like. But I'm like, yeah, I've had that come up. I have traveled quite a bit for this recent role that I've been in, and I like from time to time would get questions from folks. Oh, and who's gonna be watching your son while you're away? You know, like they're
Yep.
his dad,
It's
my
sad.
father. So yeah, it's just like in the reverse. When his dad goes and travels, I watch him.
Exactly. And if you need support from like a babysitter, if there's like a time frame, then you figure that out. But
Yeah,
it's not like your spouse completely disappears. And, I think that's one thing that I will never, hopefully never understand. Like single parents that are able to navigate the workforce while traveling, and if they don't have immediate family support, I give them such like praise and kudos to be able to navigate that, because without my husband, I don't think traveling for work would be possible. I traveled a lot when I was opening franchises, and there's no way that I would be able to do that. Like, I would have had to turn down that position. And luckily, I had him. So I just want to give props to all the single parents out there, moms and dads, that are able to navigate the workforce and still show up at work.
100%. I think about that. It's like sometimes one of the things that I think about, it's like my Roman Empire, right? Like what are single parents doing these days? Like how are they functioning? But yeah, it's incredible. I am curious too, like on the flip side of things you wish kind of would disappear from just thought processes and the way that society functions in terms of working parents. What would a truly family friendly workplace policy look like for you? And maybe it's policies plural. Like what would that ideal situation and support look like?
Yes. So I would say, because this is top of my mind, full paid leave, whether it's 12 weeks, that would be ideal. Because I think that like there's a misconception when you're looking at the leave policies, you're like, oh, I will be able to get paid like a certain amount. But then like as you're actually reading it, you're like, okay, so I might get paid like maybe 60% for a couple weeks, and then it's going to fall on my vacation, on my sick leave. And then, there's some places like when I was a IT recruiter, there were like 4 weeks that it was just unpaid. And that was same with the other workplace I worked at. And so you do take a hit financially if you aren't going to work all 12 weeks. And so that's something that I wish that everybody would get the full 12 weeks at least. So that would be a nice policy in place. Ideally, a place to pump if you have to show up in an office. And if there's like a huge office where there's multiple offices within a building, like even just a room within a big office building for moms to be able to go, even if it's not within your corporation. And then flexible work hours is amazing, especially when you do have those doctor's appointments or sick kids, to then be able to be flexible and like, hey, I may not be here for this meeting, but I will be working after I put the kids to bed, and it's not a big deal. I'll get it done. And same thing with remote options. I think remote, COVID was so hard, but I do believe the benefits of remote work as a result of that has benefited a lot of parents.
Yeah, all of those policies that you mentioned, just the way that there should be change. I feel like it's almost something that I expected would already be in place for everyone. Going into my first pregnancy and then later having my son, like it's been really eye-opening realizing how much you like folks have to advocate in order to get the bare minimum, and even then sometimes can be questioned. And so I also see just like recognizing the flexibility that there is, working for yourself and being able to set, even though like the work has to continue, being able to set boundaries and budget and prioritize certain things when you have your own business versus like trying to depend on a company to provide you the right benefits and support, hoping that they do. And then for some moms, and I mean, dads included in this, and taking leave, just praying that like their job isn't going to be, just praying that it's going to be there when they return, right? Like that it's not going to be impacted because they chose to take time away, which I think is what we're seeing too, is like I know there's been an increase in layoffs with the things that have been happening in the economy and changes over the past 2 years, even with COVID, like that's something that people have top of mind as well. Like if I step away, am I going to be penalized for this? And so just something that comes to mind for me is that I've been hearing a lot lately about people deciding to go on their own because they want to be able to set what is right, like what works for them for their leaves, and for other reasons too, obviously.
Right.
There are a lot of other perks too, with
It
this.
is hard though. And starting your own business, it is a grind emotionally. Like my business isn't, I am not going to say I've made it yet because I am still in like the infancy stages. So just trying to get traction. And man, all those entrepreneurs that have made their business successful, they're just amazing to me now. I'm supporting everybody that I know who is trying to get started or has their own business, whether successful or not, just because now I'm in the shoes
Yeah,
and it is so much harder than it looks.
feeling it, right? Yeah. Takes a certain personality, grind, determination, all the things. Well, it's been so great having you. As we're closing here, there are a couple questions that I want to leave with. And one is just kind of continuing on this maybe more positive spin. You know, we talked about like in an ideal workplace situation, what do policies look like? What does support look like? Now, what gives you hope at the moment for working parents, parents who are still having kids, who are raising kids, and who have careers? What gives you hope?
What is giving me hope is a lot of leadership is willing to have this conversation that we're having right now about workplace policies and creating a more friendly environment. And a lot of working parents, I honestly feel like have had a lot of success and are so committed that businesses that are listening are able to retain valuable employees. I do believe it is hard to fill shoes and retrain somebody. So if you have somebody that you value, you will listen. And I do feel like some workplaces are starting to do that because, as you mentioned, people are making layoffs, like businesses are making layoffs, and you have to look out for yourself. But because they're making layoffs, I do think that they want to retain the people that they have. And so they are looking into their policies, make it better, a better place for them and their employees to work, even if their workforce has been cut short.
Yeah, that's a great point too. With another statistic, just like the comparison between the cost of churning and burning employees versus actually retaining the good folks and being able to focus in on policies and supportive environments that cater to those people so that you can continue to have the team that you want and desire. There's a stark difference, and I think this is a big conversation piece right now happening in organizations is like, what is the cost of not retaining good employees, and what are we willing, you know, looking at the bottom line, what are we willing to sacrifice here with profitability if we are, again, like churning and burning folks and
Yes.
not providing environments where they feel safe to work. So just like a huge topic there. But and then lastly, what's another, or maybe I know you've shared like various pieces of advice as we've gone through the conversation, but if there was just something that you could leave with a mother returning to work, what would be kind of, you know, your parting gift to her as she's about to return to the workforce?
Yes, well, it's kind of like three different thoughts, but take it one day at a time and give yourself a lot of grace. Your body is changing, you are adjusting to a different lifestyle, and you are adjusting to going back to work. So, one day at a time, and then really trust your gut instincts. And they are normally right. And so, if you feel like you need to speak up or look a different direction and make a different decision for your career path, go ahead and make it. And I know that those jumps can be very scary, but there's so much fruit that can come from changes. And I know that we get really scared, but that's why it's important to be flexible and continue to invest in yourself and your skills because you never know what other doors are going to open for you as you navigate motherhood and your professional career.
I love that what other doors are going to open and just being flexible and nimble. I think sometimes we have our mind so set on the way that something should work out, and especially in the planning process as moms, right? And understanding that bringing a child into the world and raising children is opening so many doors for you too. And it might look a little different than you thought, but like those opportunities are still coming. So
Yes, like I was supposed to be in like a vice president seat right now. That was my career plan, or, Parks and Recreation manager or director. And, it's funny how your career changes so much, but it's changed in such amazing ways that I wouldn't take back any decision. And the more I look at it and all the different roles that I've been in and all the companies I've worked for, it will build your resume, and there's always going to be some time to adjust and continue to grow and blossom in different ways. So if it's not working out for you right now, continue to keep going. As I said, learn new skills, never stop learning, read books, listen to podcasts, and you will be an asset no matter where you are.
I love that. Such good advice and parting words. Thank you again, Ashley, for everything that you shared today. I think your experiences and the way that you approach life and work is just so incredible. It's been lovely to have you here today. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Yes, it's been so much fun and so great talking to you and getting to work with you again, even if it's not in a master's degree setting. I loved learning about your experience as being a mother too.
Thank you. That's a wrap on today's episode of Birth at Work. If our topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on social or via email. Your experiences and questions help shape future episodes. Remember, you're not alone in this journey of balancing career and family. Every challenge you're facing, someone else has navigated too, and every victory you celebrate, big or small, deserves to be recognized. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other working parents find these conversations when they need them the most. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing these stories, please share this episode with them. Until next time, remember, you don't have to choose between your career dreams and your family dreams. You're already proving that every day. Thanks for listening to Birth at Work. I'm Chrislyn Powell, and I'll see you next time.